I think it's very important when we're looking at HR and talent management in the global context and emerging markets to realize that there's going to be no V-shaped bounce back recovery in the global economy and in global businesses. And that'll affect how companies behave with their HR and their talent management. I think what I've been saying is that there'll be at least three things that hold back global business and means that 2010 will be a year of consolidation for business and therefore for HR. And that is, one, that the banking sector globally is not functioning properly and not lending enough money to corporations, which will obviously hold us back and delay and postpone any solid, sustainable recovery. Secondly, the global consumer is very fragile, very concerned, and we're seeing some very mixed messages about what the global consumer is doing. And thirdly, global governments have spent huge amounts of money saving us from this financial crisis, and that means budget deficits have shot up. And the concern there would be if governments prematurely raise taxes and cut back spending. And of course that would have huge impacts for sales to governments who wouldn't want to spend, but also on social consumption and consumer spending. So that is the context I put my human resource and talent management into. I think also on the HR topic specifically, I've talked about the function of HR. I think companies very often treat the HR function as a Cinderella role. It doesn't get treated strategically. It doesn't get the right resources for that role. I also feel that very often companies think they're very strong on HR as an issue. They commend themselves and they say glibly, we do training, therefore we must be a very good company for HR. But I think one of the critical issues in a crisis is that companies don't cut too deeply, that they damage their relations with their customers, with their distributors and partners, and of course with their HR and their talent. And I think this crisis, like previous crises, has shown that many companies do cut too deeply, too quickly. It's particularly sad because they've invested a lot over the years in their human resources strategy and programs. And if I may say, rather glibly, they flush these people down the toilet at the first sign of a crisis. And then some companies say, well, staff are not loyal to us, but have they in turn shown enough loyalty to their staff in these periods? Before the crisis, the war for talent, the answer was talent had won. Turnover, salary pressures, recruitment, finding the right people, supply and demand meant that companies were under tremendous pressure. This has changed, of course, like day and night during the crisis, but I think the issue is when do we go back to some extent to the situation we were in before? And I think in some companies we're seeing the start of this. I don't think we'll have all the issues and challenges and problems that we had pre-crisis, but I think some of them will come back. I think we're already seeing a pickup in voluntary turnover in a number of markets, and I think also salary pressure upwards is creeping back. And I think during 2010, as the global recovery slowly picks up, with more of it happening in the second half of the year, I think those HR pressures and challenges will arise more. And I think finally, it'll be industry specific. Those sectors that did relatively well, pharmaceuticals, food, some parts of consumer goods, some parts of utilities, people are more confident in those sectors and will move jobs and want higher salaries more quickly than they will in the relatively weaker sectors, which I would describe as the industrial, manufacturing and IT industries, as well as real estate and construction. Because in those sectors, people do not feel secure. You can't jump job into another company in those sectors. No one's hiring yet. So I think that will be slightly more delayed than the better sectors.